Hi there, queers and comrades. It is Jason Wyman, aka Really Complex. And it is Monday, which means that I am coming to you with Jason Reads. Jason Reads is a weekly series where I read the words and works of others that are helping me find my place amidst the chaos of this cosmos. It's a commitment that I made to myself in 2026 to slowly study other people's words and works and share them with my community because we could all use a little more guides right now. Especially right now. Today, I'm going to be reading from The Disordered Cosmos. This is by Chanda Prescod-Weinstein. I love this book. It's about science and race and everything, colonialism. I'll share it in just a second. But before that, I have two big announcements. The first is Chambers of the Heart. That's right, Chambers of the Heart. This is a call for art from trans and queer and non-binary artists 25 and under. I am organizing this with the amazing Alan Tello, Sonia Esteva, and Kazani Kalani Finau. This project is accepting digital submissions only. It's 100% free, and it can be any kind of art form. It can be poems, it can be photography, digital collage, illustration, a journal page, a score, I don't know, a recipe, a pattern. There are so many options. It needs to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and be submitted digitally at 300 DPI. All of the details are at queerlycomplex.com. It's part of a big print show that we'll be printing and installing at 465 Collective this summer, this upcoming July. The other quick announcement is Thursdays are for queers and comrades. This Thursday, we kick off our mutual aid table and our solidarity club. Our mutual aid table is currently seeking some contributions, including toiletries, blankets, jackets, clothes, underwear, socks, those kinds of things. If you have anything that you would like to donate, please drop them off 465 South Van Ness tomorrow between 5 to 7 p.m. and swing by our mutual aid table, which opens on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. This Thursday, we also have Solidarity Club from 7 to 9 p.m. If you are interested in security or are part of safety teams or things of that nature ahead of Pride season, please come on through. It is an informal space for us to connect with one another ahead of festival season so that we can all be connected and that we can all better respond to the escalating violence that we know is on our streets. And that's by the state, by the way. Let's be clear about who is escalating that violence. So we need to get organized on our end. And so, without any further ado, I am sharing this one today because it's, while it's about science, it's also about industries. And I have been thinking a lot about my industry lately. And instead of reading about my industry, I'll read about someone else's industry. And by the way, my industry is mostly arts and culture. But this is also true for arts and culture. The relationship between science and exploitive profit is not new, of course, although it is shaped in the 21st century by the decline of what was effectively a public funding blip in the 20th century. If we look back through the last 500 years, we find plenty of examples of science being privately and publicly funded with profit as a goal. I've mentioned the 17th century expedition to Haiti, supported by the Paris Observatory under the directorship of Giovanni Cassini, for whom a NASA space probe is named. Cassini has also managed an astronomical expedition to French Guiana. His son Jacques was involved in a similar expedition to Martinique. The European astronomers who tagged along on expeditions to different colonies did so partly on the argument that the observations they would do along the way would make future trips more efficient. At the time, governments were particularly interested in how to quickly move around goods, including kidnapped Africans, some of whom were my ancestors. What we call quote-unquote modern astronomy has never been pure. It has always been tied to violent colonial and capitalist activities. As outlined in Audre Wolfe's book, Freedom's Laboratory, The Cold War Struggles for the Soul of Science, and Daniel S. Greenberg's The Politics of Pure Science, those seeking to prop up the newly dominant physics community promoted particle physics as pure, apolitical science. The kind that could only happen in a quote-unquote free and quote-unquote democratic society like the United States. This kind of messaging served the needs of scientists who wanted more funding allocated to their research, and it served the United States government by suggesting that an apolitical, pure science was only possible in capitalist, politically democratic America. This history points to an evident irony in the various claims made by leaders of the March for Science that it was apolitical, and then when they dropped that it was nonpartisan. They were just reproducing nearly century-old propaganda that formed a core part of what our academic grandparents had been taught when they were students. In reality, in both the 2010s and 1950s, racial totalitarianism lurked as a subtext to both science's use and claims about American democracy. The impact on Vietnam of the chemical weapon napalm, which was developed by Harvard by chemist Louis Pfizer, is widely known. The long-term health effects of the herbicide Agent Orange, which effectively worked as an anti-civilian chemical weapon in Vietnam, continues to impact families across Southeast Asia and the United States, including my own. Also, there were the incarcerated people in Holmesburg prison, many of whom were Black, who were early test subjects for the scientists experimenting with Agent Orange. Arguments will continue endlessly about whether the US ever would have dropped nuclear weapons on an Eastern nation like Germany, while it readily dropped them in Japan, despite the fact that Japan was likely already going to surrender. From Dr. J. Marion Sims's 19th century gynecological surgery experiments on unanesthetized enslaved Black women, to the Tuskegee experiment on Black men and their families, to careless uranium mining on indigenous reservations and nuclear weapons testing that left Pacific Islanders to live and die with the nuclear fallout, the devaluing of Black American lives and indigenous lives around the world has played a key role in scientific experiment and development. These experiments were carried out because of a racist refusal to value people's lives. But the US also has a history of using technology to directly attack people of color freedom movements. Deploying the technologies of increasingly capable airplanes and bombs, the US military used technological prowess to intervene in global anti-colonial movements all over the global South, from Africa to Asia to Latin America. Moreover, surveillance technologies, such as listening devices, that often rely on solid-state physics discoveries, have long been deployed against Black civil rights organizers, from the Black Panthers to members of Black Lives Matter. We have developed the capacity to warm the entire planet. This, in the end, is science under totalitarianism. As Commander Sisko says in the series premiere of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, quote unquote, I live here. We live here, in a society that has long been governed by racist and colonial totalitarianism. For a long time, institutionalized science, which has traditionally been exclusively by and for white men, at best ignored this reality and at worst played willing foot soldier for the cause. To be anything different, we must start where we are and talk about whether this is who we want to be and the world we want to make better, because no matter what Dan Savage coos at you, it doesn't always get better. Progress is not guaranteed. This should be the definitive lesson of November 2016 for anyone who is new to this understanding of the world. We have to bend the arc of the moral universe ourselves, because the moral universe is populated by people. People are the ones who need to shift. Importantly, they have to shift in the right direction. Clearly, some, Trump voters, the Democrats who champion centrism and neoliberalism, are shifting in the wrong direction. Now that the inevitability of progress has proven a lie, it is time to confront the colonialism and anti-Blackness and xenophobia that are foundational to what America is and why it exists. Now is the time to confront the history of gender and misogyny and how enforcing a gender binary in an essentialist manner was part of the violent colonial project. We must accept the truth about ableism and its connection to our fierce belief that some people are disposable and worthless. All of these things are tied together under the tent of white supremacy. We must somehow hold all of these actual truths about America to be self-evident. We must be humble enough to hear the lessons of people who are critiquing the colonialism of institutionalized science. And we must also be willing to listen to the people who are critiquing the colonialism of institutionalized art and culture. My name is Jason Wyman. I'm also known as Queerly Complex, and this is Jason Reads. I've been reading from The Disordered Cosmos by Chanda Prescod-Weinstein. You can find everything at queerlycomplex.com, and please check out Chambers of the Heart and Thursdays Are for Queers and Comrades. Ciao, y'all.